A professional counselor in the Dallas area is growing in popularity for his treatment methods.
How do you talk to kids about terror? And with social media and television, it's everywhere, and it's unavoidable for kids.
Rusty Lozano is the founder of the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy. He's also been nationally recognized for his work with brain mapping.
He's created a gym to work out the mind. His office features an obstacle course.
Rusty Lozano is a licensed professional counselor, helping children with headaches, with anxiety, ADHD, and more.
Here's where Lozano comes in. He teaches kids how to think their pain away with something called biofeedback.
A North Texas therapist is treating patients in this unconventional way.
We have Rusty Lozano who's joining us today. He's a licensed professional counselor.
He put together an unusual treatment for teenagers who are struggling with mental issues, except he's taking this now a step further.
Rusty Lozano, a leading therapist and pediatric biofeedback therapist based in Texas at the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy. And Rusty, thanks for being with us tonight.
Rusty Lozano, a father of 4 and also a professional counselor in Texas, says it's all about being a credible resource to your children.
The Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, your dedicated resource for mental health news, views, and tips you can use. Brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas. And now, here's Rusty.
And good afternoon. Welcome to the show. My name is Rusty Lozano, and I am your host. And you are listening to the Therapy Hour on KFXR Talk Radio 1190. Boy, we have a great show today. And this pertains to just about every household in the U.S. and really around the world, because if you have animals, cats, dogs, birds, you have to make space for these little creatures and their family members. But more importantly, what about dogs? That's one of the most common household pets that you see and you hear about. So I want to read you some fun facts, and then I want to introduce my guest, who is amazing, by the way. So jump right in. These are facts pulled up from the internet on pet ownership. There is an estimated 78 million dogs and 85.8 million cats that are owned in the United States. Approximately 44% of all households in the United States have a dog, and 35% have a cat. Moreover, approximately 7.6 million companion animals enter animal shelters nationwide every year. Of those, approximately 3.9 are dogs and 3.4 million are cats. Those statistics are staggering. And I see animals all the time. There's a pet place close to my house, and you see little animals, little pets for sale in the window. You see them bringing in. I go to Bass Pro Shop, and I look around because it's one of my favorite hangouts, by the way. And you can bring in dogs, and you can bring them home to Home Depot. And then, I have friends on Facebook, and they post about their pets. And when they lose pets, and it's mortifying. This time last year, we had to put my Great Dane. She was a Harlequin Great Dane. Her name was Miley, and she was one of the best friends I've had in a long time. And aside from my family, but she was my family, but she was my 4-legged friend. And now we have Momo, who's a Great Dane. I got in replacement of her, and she's a Spitfire. So all over the place. Animals, dogs. And so what do we do? Because, you hear about animals chewing shoes. You hear about them running amok. You hear about them soiling the house, barking at other dogs, maybe biting people. So when is it time to seek out help, and can you help? And what sort of thing do you do to find the right kind of help? Where do you go? Well, my guest, Kimberly Artly, I've been speaking with her all this morning for a good while, and actually last week when we met, and she's just full of energy, awesome guest. But she's the founder of Packfit, and she's the author of the celebrated book, My Dog, My Buddha, which I just got my copy of, and I flipped through it, and I was just blown away. And I read the excerpt on Lobo, which I want to talk to you guys about. And anyway, she's been described as the Mary Poppins of dog training. Kimberly, are you there?
I'm here.
Awesome. Hey, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you for being on, because I think that this is going to be a really insightful show for a lot of people. You know, your passion for dogs and the things that you do with Packfit and just the material in your book, just when I've read a little bit about it. But how long have you been doing this? And what is it exactly that you do?
Oh, gosh. Well, it's by name, it's a dog training and behavior company. But honestly, it's far more about training and educating the human end of the leash than anything. The dog really is the easy part. But we're a dog training and behavior company. We do private sessions. There's a board and train program that I have called a Stay and Learn. Just sounds nicer. Where the dog comes and stays with us, depending on what's going on. You know, there's every dog's an individual. Every situation is very unique. You really, honestly, you can't take a one size fits all approach when it comes to addressing any kind of challenge or issue. I mean, it's the same thing with humans. So,
yeah, you really can't, because you think about maybe a small dog with like a big dog mentality, and then maybe a big dog with like a meekish small dog mentality. Have you seen those? I mean, you run across that kind of scenario a lot?
Yeah, it's again, dogs are just as individual as we are. I mean, just like some people are more introverted, some people are more extroverted, some are more sensitive, some are more, just some not so much. I mean, they're going to have, there's various dimensions dogs have various dimensions just like we do. So, what I've found typically for the smaller dogs is, they have like an eternal supply of get out of jail free cards.
Right.
Because
they're cute.
People,
right.
Yeah. They're size, they're small, they're cute. People feel bad disciplining them. So there's no rules, there's no structure, there's no boundaries. They're not being taught, the ways of the world, how to navigate it. Nobody's helping them connect the dots. So they just spend the majority of their time in total reaction mode, because they haven't been equipped.
Let me ask you something. So
sure.
I was telling you earlier about how we rented a party bus for my daughter's 16th birthday.
Yeah.
We're going around Dallas, and they have these big signs, and they have their landmarks, and they're in front of one is in front of Deep Ellum and in different areas around Dallas. We ended up at Clyde Warren Park, and we were going to have cake there, and there was a bunch of kids, and they have food trucks. And here comes this guy, and dogs are allowed. Here comes this guy, and he's walking a puppy, and it's a baby German Shepherd, and its head is down, and you can tell it's a baby. It's little for one, but his ears are fluffy and down and kind of floppy as he's walking, and he's looking down, and he was just cute as can be. So we ran. I was like, hey, I told my daughter, I was like, Hannah, look. And she goes, oh my God. And so we all ran over and like, can we pet your dog, please? He's like, sure. Yeah. And so when we went to go pet the dog, that dog, it was a baby German Shepherd with its needle teeth, like turned, and it was like biting down on our hands and fingers like as hard as it possibly could. Like it was chewing it. In fact, like I have 2 cuts on my hand from where this dog's teeth actually dug into my hand. And it wasn't being aggressive. It was just it was like a play chew, but oh my gosh, dude, it was like, it hurt. We all pulled away and we're like, ow. He goes, yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot to tell you that
baby shark.
She bites. Yes. And so we gave her the nickname Chompy. And so there's Chompy is like, oh, there goes Chompy. And we saw Chompy around the park. And, but what could somebody have done in a situation like that? Like, what is it that makes a dog, what's going through the dog's mind?
Well, it's just like, you have human babies and toddlers that are crawling around, they're sticking things in their mouths, like they're exploring all of their senses, touch, mouthfeel, taste, sight, sound, all of those things. I mean, there's a great deal of information. When dogs are born, they're born with firstly, they're born with their noses open, their eyes and their ears are closed. So that's how they first begin to identify with the world around them. So that's why it's so important,
that's their strongest sense.
Yeah. I mean, that's why when I meet a dog for the first time, for example, unfortunately for dogs, this can be very overwhelming to many, many dogs too. Is as soon as we see a dog, we think that we're entitled to getting up in their personal space and in their grill and just touching them all over the place, which can really set, I mean, some dogs, there are some dogs that are just cool as cucumbers and they just roll with it, and they're, nothing really phases them. Yeah. And I've met a few of those dogs, but for the majority of the dogs, we have a lot of high-strung, nervous, anxious, stressed, whatever types of dogs. But not all dogs are going to be comfortable with strangers. It's like if I walked up to you and I'd never met you before, I didn't know you from Adam, and I got within an inch of your face and I was like, hey, my name's Kim, how are you? And then I started touching you all over. Yeah. You would probably, depending on your personality, you would probably back up and be like, whoa, lady, personal space.
Right.
Or wow. You would just clock me, or you would, whatever. Unfortunately for dogs, because they are cute and furry and, everybody has this insatiable need to touch them.
Yeah. And they totally feel like it's okay for you to go and just, everything you're saying is making perfect sense. From the senses, and he's chewing and exploring his senses with my hand. Yeah. And he's chewing, he goes, oh, this is kind of fleshy. What is this? And so
that's true, but we also want to teach him, it's up to us. We separate them from their mother and their siblings. We bring them into our homes, into our, quote unquote packs, our families. Mm-hmm. And, it's up to us. They're not born understanding the ways of our world. They're not born understanding what we consider to be appropriate, polite, respectful behavior. So the onus 100% falls upon us to teach them this, to guide them, to show that, to help them connect those necessary dots, because we are raising future canine citizens. Just like with kids, we are raising future adults, future adult citizens. So, but where the kicker is we can't teach, we can't lead, we can't show, we can't connect the dots, and we can't guide without first understanding how to communicate effectively. They are a completely different species of animal.
No, that's great. I think let's start with that, communicating effectively. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back after these messages. Hi, we're back. If you're just joining us, we're talking four paws and a wagging tail with Kimberly Artly. She is the Mary Poppins of dog training, and she's with an organization called Packfit, which we're going to talk about later on in the segment. But before the break, we started talking about an experience I had with this little puppy that came up to. We went up to it. Let's be fair. She was just kind of walking along with her owner, and we saw how cute she was, and we wanted to pet and feel her little fur on our hands. So we asked, can we pet your dog? And so then all these hands came over and started petting all over her, and I was petting her ears, and because they look so soft and cute. And so then she started to chew on my hand, and so it wasn't a behavioral thing, but it was really a senses thing. But then over to the break, you were kind of bringing up some really interesting things that, we're all in their face, and we're doing things without their permission. And
well, there's the one argument on one side of it. There's a very critical window in a young dog's life where we want to expose them to as many situations and scenarios and other cats and other dogs and kids and whatever. So they're not completely taken off guard when they are put in those situations. That's the critical socialization period that many dogs unfortunately they don't really get. Nobody really invests. Not many people invest the time and energy and attention into because we have this going on in our lives, that going on. We've got this many kids, we've got our jobs, you've got whatever.
Yeah, so it's like your dog just needs to sit there and look cute. But you have to actually spend time and do things with them and train them.
But we have to expose them to different things so that they can make sense of it. They understand it. They know that it's not a threat, so it's,
is there a window of time that you do that? Like,
usually, I mean, the word on the street,
Yeah.
the word on the behaviorist street, is, between like 6 and 12 months of age. That's a pretty critical window for a lot of dogs as far as exposure goes.
Yeah.
And, but there's also like, it's up to us to know our dog. I say to train thy dog, we must know thy dog first and foremost. We have to have an understanding of their comfort levels, their personality. Are they really sensitive? Are they really shy? Are they really squeamish? There's genetics that also very much comes into play, but genetics can be upplayed or downplayed, by whatever's going on in the environment. But, dogs, it's our role and our responsibility to also advocate for them. We've got to advocate for them. And when dogs do not feel advocated for, then, there's a level of trust that diminishes. There's a level of respect that diminishes, and they're not going to feel as comfortable or safe and secure following us.
Yeah.
So
because they're not, because you have to connect with them and they have to trust that you're going to give them, their needs are met, and you're going to keep them safe, and you're not going to harm them and put them in harmful situations. So it's the trust element. You know what I was thinking about?
I mean, we're oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Just before we like trail off, there's one more thing I wanted to add is, I mean, when we bring a dog into our homes, I mean, we're essentially entering into a relationship with them. And at the foundation of every sound relationship is the trust and respect factor. If you do not have trust, if you do not have respect, you've got nothing to build upon, and you've got absolutely nothing to grow from. So how do we build trust and respect? We show up consistently every single day. They have a set of instinctual needs that have to be met and fulfilled and provided for. So, it's really just of how we're showing up. And then you and I were also chatting a little bit during the break about a level of expectation. We have this level of expectation when it comes to our dogs. In order to be a good dog, you must play with other dogs, and you must be awesome with kids, and you must be this, you must be that. And we dishonor them in such a big way, because, when the individual dog might have some like quirks or some uncertainties or whatever, but if that individual dog doesn't meet our level of expectation, then it's the dog that gets judged. It's the dog that gets labeled. It's the dog that gets kicked to the curb.
Right. And have you seen situations, and I'm sure you have, where dogs can be rehabilitated? So it's not just, you don't just throw the dog out because it just didn't fit your needs. And I'm thinking like, you go to a shelter and like you're walking down and they're all excited to see you. So it's loud, right? But then you have some dogs that they're kind of sad looking and like they're not doing anything. They look kind of lethargic. You have some that are kind of moving back and forth, and they want to lick you, and there's some that kind of look aggressive. But any one of those can fit a household. It just depends like on your level of commitment.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, this is where like the state of mind it is. We cannot get an accurate assessment of a dog's true blue personality in that kind of environment, because their needs are not being met. Right. They've got all of this compounded residual energy. And it's like, it's not a good space, to get a really accurate read and accurate assessment of a dog's personality.
So you can't really base it on like their presentation.
No, because what you're seeing is just, it's symptomatic of, them, whether it's, I don't know, like betrayal, or whether it's desertion, or whether it's, just confusion, there's frustration, I'm in this strange place and I can't have my needs met. I really need to burn off some energy, but I'm constricted and confined to this teeny tiny space, and I'm going out of my mind. And then they'll start, like scratching on the walls or chewing on their tail, or, obsessively licking the gate or whatever. It's just their manifestations. And that's what I say, behavior behavior, and this is the same as that's true for human beings. I mean, behavior is a manner of expression, and it's the external manifestation of an underlying internal driving force. So, you know, what we see on the outside, it's often reflective of what's going down within. I mean, even aggression, for example, like viciousness and aggression. Viciousness, there's a big difference between trait and behavior. Viciousness is a trait. It's very, 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 very few dogs are born with the intent to kill or cause harm. Very, very few. Aggression, on the other hand, is a conditioned response. It's a coping mechanism. It's symptomatic, usually, of underlying fear, insecurity, frustration from one or more of their needs not being met and provided for by us. That's our job.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So really,
confusion.
it seems very much, it emulates the human condition, where we would actually be very symptomatic without our needs being met, suppression, learned experiences, trauma, and then it'll affect us. So what you're doing is you're applying that same concept to animals, to the dogs, and it works. I mean, I can see it. I can actually, I see exactly what you're saying, because, you know, we were at the state fair this last, a few months ago. Texas State Fair is one of the biggest, county state fairs in the world, in the nation. And they had a little exhibit for dogs, and then there's a cute Siberian Husky that's kind of laying there, and they said, please no fingers in the cage. And it's hard, you know, people do. And so, but he's looking at the cage, exactly what you're saying. But then there's the one that's like, you know, he's the black, muscly, pit bull type dog, and he's barking and snarling. And I was like, oh yeah, that's an aggressive dog. I mean, that's not something that but we're looking at it at face value. It's what keeps going through my head. But what you're saying is that there's a reason for that. And that's something that once we as owners and as companions feel the need for the animal, that just about any animal can be rehabilitated and be a fruitful, you know, viable addition to your household.
Can return to balance, can return to calm. And that's one of the biggest things that I'm big on is conditioning calm. You know, so many dogs, we unknowingly condition this on switch. There's, you know, just like it's the yin and yang. You've got the on switch, you've got the off switch. And, you know, dogs are constantly being reinforced unknowingly for practicing escalated, excited states of mind and behaviors. And, you know, I mean, dogs, honestly, and again, much like human beings, dogs are mainly about two things: whatever it is they're going to gain from practicing something, and whatever's going to ensure their survival. That's it. So for the most part, I mean, we've got the survival bit down.
Kind of sounds like
a
kid.
They're yes.
It's exactly, I mean, like a kid.
I'm like dog psychology and human psychology. I mean, they're vastly different, obviously.
Right.
But there's so many parallels and so many crossovers.
I see it, yeah.
You know?
Really?
And, you know, so I'm really big on conditioning calm, because most dogs that I work with that are, you know, just highly adrenalized or high strung, or just they're, you know, jumping out of their gourds, they're just, they kind of live in the on switch headspace. It's really, really good. Like you've got to counter condition that. You've got to counter that. So there, you know, if a dog is practicing super excited energy, you want to approach the dog and you want to work with the dog from a super, super calm space. Kind of levels out the playing field. Versus if you have like a super lethargic dog that just is totally unmotivated, doesn't want to do anything, you know, I would probably counter that energy with a super excited energy, just to help, you know, meet him somewhere in the middle, just to get him revved up or jazzed up and motivated him somehow. So
increase energy levels through more activity. Via you know, try to get him to chase the ball, or go for a walk, or follow me, come run after me. You know what I want to get into with you on the next segment, because we're running down in about 50 seconds. But
Okay.
this is actually what we've been covering so far is the connection between an owner and the dog as a companion. Now I'd like for you to maybe on this next segment, if we can touch on what happens when you have other animals in the household and how do we integrate this then into our little pet family. So let's talk about that. As soon as we come back, we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano on KFXR Talk Radio 1190. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas.
Hi, we are back. You are just joining us. We're visiting with Kimberly Artly. She is the Mary Poppins of dog training. And boy, I am learning a lot just in our conversations. And my own pets come to mind. But what we've covered so far is the interaction and the communication with an owner and the pets. And then, we touched on if you go to an animal shelter and you're watching these animals, like how to assess or really look at their energy level and understand that, well, if that's the one you want and like he's presenting a certain way, really it's about the dog's needs not getting met or something that's pent up, but can be worked with. Because I've seen a picture of you on the internet and there's this one that's really cool. It's my favorite. You're walking and you have all these dogs all around you. And you can see you're kind of trailing away. And then there's one of a profile shot with you and you have all these animals around you and they're all different sizes and shapes. And I'm like, what keeps those guys from getting onto each other?
Energy
and how satisfied I guess they are. I mean, do they feel like they're comfortable? I mean, they get out.
Well, it's we've got, dogs know us on a level that many of us don't even know ourselves. They know exactly who they can push around. They know exactly who they can't. They know, it's again, when I say that dog training it's like inadvertent life coaching, because when we can teach the human how to step up in a more confident way, in a calmer way, in a more grounded way. And when I say grounded, I mean unemotional. I'm not trying to say, we have to be robotic human beings or anything like that. I'm not saying that, but we can feel emotions, but we can't, we shouldn't live there, and we cannot lead and we cannot guide from an emotional headspace. Right? There's a big difference between a boss and a leader. Usually bosses are, people that tend to bark out orders, that pun intended.
Right.
Bark out orders from
I've had plenty of those bosses. Yep. Right. Yes. I know that. I know the type.
Yeah. So, they tend to, they're usually just pretty insecure people that need to, they're trying to, fluff themselves up and just look bigger than they really feel about themselves,
Right.
But leadership is a far different beast. Leadership it's an approach, it's a mindset, it's how you show up. There's an energy behind it. And dogs, that's what dogs respond to. And when we were talking about the communication bit earlier, our primary form of language is verbal. But, when I'm working with a dog, I could be talking in Swahili or Japanese, or it doesn't matter.
Right. They don't speak English. They don't speak a certain language.
No.
And you made a really cool comment the other day, and I'm sorry, I don't want to throw you off, but you made a really cool comment the other day about the power of the leash and what that is. Can you explain that again?
Yeah. Okay. So the leash, in my opinion, is probably one of the most abused dog training tools that are out there. Especially retractable leashes. I cannot stand them. Please put them away.
Really? No good?
Oh, no bueno.
Oh,
no
dude.
Bueno.
Wow, there goes my 20-footer.
If teaching your dog to swim, sure, whip out the retractable. But, you know, there's an entire conversation that's going on during a dog walk. You know, who's leading who, what pushy, testy behavior will gain the dog. Again, we're talking about, you know, what it is that they're gaining when they're practicing certain states of mind and behavior, whether it be attention, affection, forward movement, meals, treats, privileges, like jumping on the couches, jumping on the furniture, getting up on your level on the bed, all of those things, whatever it is that they're gaining. But during the walk, I mean, everything that we do with a dog is an entire conversation. There is always some sort of dialogue going down, unbeknownst to many people. And the ritual of the walk actually starts inside the house behind closed doors before we even step outside. And we typically, what many people do is they start to create a lot of excitement before they even go outside on the walk. So they'll start with like, you want to go for a walk? You want to go for a walk? Who wants to go for a walk? You want to go? Okay, now my dogs just jumped up. They were like, hey, yeah, we're down. Let's go. No.
Yeah.
No.
Oh, they're hearing you.
Not time, buddy.
Oh, that's
Not
cute.
time, bud.
You know what's funny?
Right.
You know, you said the other day that that owning a dog is the only thing that can make people talk like Smurfs. And it's true, right? You hear that coo 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 little baby.
There's something about a dog that makes everybody want to talk like a Smurf. And that's what they respond to. Like, I can create a bunch of excitement if I talk like this, you know,
Right.
or I can ground out my vocal tone and my inflection and my pitch. And there's a very different message that comes across when I do that. So, you know, there's a big difference between sit, no, sit. Okay.
Are your boys listening to you?
Yeah.
Are they listening to you? Oh, that's
no, they're not.
Okay.
They're just like, you've got to be freaking kidding me. You know,
it's like it's not time for that.
Like, she's going out of her mind. We don't know that. That's cute. But there's a difference between that and sit. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I mean, there's a different energy. There's a different intention. There's a very different conversation that's going on there.
So voice tonations.
Voice inflection, pitch and tone is a big one. You know, one denotes like something that can be negotiated. One, you know, it's, you know, I'm asking you, pretty please sit, please. And then the other is sit down. This is non-negotiable.
This is no nonsense.
This is, yeah. You know, and a dog.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's not about, you know, it's not about like, I'm asserting myself over you because you're my dog, but you know, it's about trust. It's about respect. It's about, you know, I'm going to give you directives. I'm going to tell you how to navigate the world around you. I'm going to tell you how to develop. I'm going to help you develop your self-concept. I'm going to help you develop your world concept. I want you to look to me for all of your cues, all of your directives, your guidance for how to feel about each and every scenario you enter into. I want you to look for me because you can trust me. I've got your back and I can totally handle whatever may come our way.
Interesting.
So that's leadership. And
leadership. Yeah. It makes sense.
There's a natural order and a natural structure to how everything operates in the animal kingdom and to how everything operates out in nature. And, you know, it is what it is. And they are living in a very, we're living in a very far from instinctual environment. And we're living
big time.
from a very,
we're out of our element completely with these devices and running on time and working past the sundown.
Running on empty.
Right, exactly. And nutrition and all that stuff. I mean, we're completely out of our element. But
absolutely.
I can imagine it's the same for dogs. What about bringing a dog into a household with other pets? And is there a way to kind of integrate them like effectively?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you've got to have a sense, of course, of the dispositions and the personalities. But I mean, our job and our role our Joel.
My dog has big jowls.
Our job and our role is to manage the energy, to manage and control the state of mind of our dogs. Just like with kids, there's a time and place. And, we don't release our kids out into the playground and just let them go balls to the wall. I'm sorry, I don't know if I can say that,
yeah,
but
you're fine.
Just, you know what I mean? I mean, just to let them go
Let's
crazy,
go, survive,
go wild,
go for it.
Yeah, run amok and do whatever you want without supervision. So it's our role. It's our role and responsibility to manage and control their state of mind, to manage and control the energy in a group setting, and introduce and integrate, like, especially when it comes to new dogs, when you're introducing new dogs together. Yeah. When I do that, it's very, very structured. It's not like, I'm going to wing it. I'm just going to let them see how they like each other and go from there. No, you do it in a very structured, very respectful manner. And, I don't know how really to describe it, but it's just, for example, I know my dogs. Mm-hmm. I know their triggers. I know what they're comfortable with. I know their comfort levels.
Right.
So, a new dog coming in, I might not have a very strong sense of who the new dog is. So usually I'll do introductions and I'll utilize the leash. We started to talk about that earlier, but we got off topic. Yeah. But, I use the leash inside the house and to communicate with dogs, just as much as I use them for outside the house. We're talking, again, I think it's important to note just before we get off topic again, but a lot of people use the leash to restrict or to physically manhandle or restrain their dog. There's constant tension on the leash. Tension begets tension. Right.
And some of those are awful because they have like these spikes, these chain links that dig into the skin. And I'm like, dude, it looks like that dog looks like a thug. I mean, it looks like a killer.
Thug life. Yeah, no. I will say this, I think what you're referring to is the prong collar. Mm-hmm. And here we go, because we're going to get off topic. We're going to get off topic again. Here we go.
We flow around.
No, it's awesome. It's all good. I mean, it's things just keep rolling. But what many people don't realize, I love the prong collar.
Oh, you do? Okay.
Oh, yeah. But see, the prong collar is designed the way that it is because it's supposed to mimic another dog's mouth. Dogs use their mouths to correct one another.
I never knew that.
They use their mouths to correct one another. It's a very clear way to communicate with the dog. Huh. And it's honestly the difference that I've seen when I'm using, this is the problem with prong collars and e-collars too. The problem with dog training tools is one, they were used by heavy-handed punishment style old school trainers way back in the day. So the tools themselves developed a bad reputation. And two, they are readily and easily accessible by every Dick, Harry, and Jane that think that they have a problem dog and they think that a tool is going to solve their problem. So without learning the ins and outs of the tool, without educating themselves on how to properly fit it, how to introduce it, how to condition the dog, there's an entire language that we develop. When I'm using any tool, whether it be a crate, a leash, a training collar, anything, there's an association development phase, there's a conditioning phase, and there's a proofing phase. And most people, they skip all that. They get a prong collar off of Walmart.com or Amazon.com or wherever. Yeah. They slap it on the dog and they just start jerking it around. And that is not the way that it's supposed to be used. And unfortunately, it's the collar and it's the tool that gets blamed when it's not ever the tool. It is the human, the energy, and the intention behind the tool.
That's it.
It's not the tool.
It's the tool.
Human, the energy.
Used.
Yeah.
And it's how it's being used. Hold that thought for 1 second. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Okay.
You're listening to the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, brought to you by the Center for Biofeedback and Behavior Therapy in Addison, Texas.
Hello, welcome back. This is our last segment on our topic of dogs and Kimberly Artly, the Mary Poppins of dog training. She's awesome. Really practical, really cool information. The information just kind of flows. You're just so full of, I don't want to say this as don't take that out of context, but you're so full of it. You have a lot of really good information that you're giving us. And boy, I'm learning quite a bit, And I think
that's so great.
I mean, it's interesting how the parallels between psychology and everything you're describing. So I want to talk to you about something. I just got your book, My Dog, My Buddha, Kimberly Artly, and you can find this book on, is it packfit.net?
Yeah, there's a link. Yeah, there's a link on my website, packfit.net, where it'll take you to a different site to purchase the book. And there's everybody gets their choice of one of 3 covers. I couldn't decide which one I liked best. I loved all of them. So
they're all great.
I was like, oh, thanks. Yeah, I was like, how cool would it be to just allow people the opportunity to choose the cover that, speaks to them. So everybody gets their choice of cover.
And that's Packfit, PACKFIT.net. So let's talk a little bit of, literally just somebody put this book on my desk and I knew it was coming. And I read the excerpt on how all of this started for you. You've been around, you have a lot of great media, you have a following, and I can tell you're passionate about what you do. But how did all this start for you? Like, what got you involved with have you always been a dog person, or did something happen that kind of put this all into play for you?
Well, both. I in my previous life, I coached humans. I life coached, and my background's also nutrition and stress management, all that good stuff. So, and one of the most popular questions I used to get was, I don't know what to do with my life. I don't know what my purpose is. I want to know what my purpose is. And I would always encourage that people think back to their childhood and just reflect on what it was that they used to do, what they naturally gravitated towards. Like, what was that thing that you used to do that you would lose all sense of time and you were just in your total bliss? And, because often we're directed, in a different direction by our parents, by, culture, society, other people's definitions of success and what, a career should look like, and so on and so forth. And for me, I surrounded myself with animals. I loved animals. I used to bring home, animals that I was, saving from the road or saving from wherever. And, bless my mother's heart. But I always gravitated towards animals. And where I got my first solo responsibility dog, was a dog named Lobo. And he's who I refer to as my game changer dog. He was one of my greatest teachers. I mean, every single dog that comes into our lives, and comes under our care is always going to teach us something new. They're always going to require something new and something different of us. That's how I believe that dogs really, really help facilitate our own personal growth and evolution. And this dog, he basically, I was married at the time, and he was basically fulfilling an emotional space, which, this is common. People get dogs to fulfill their own emotional needs without giving a second thought as to what the dog's needs are. But, my husband and I were 2 very different people. He was very much an indoorsy kind of guy. I'm very much not. I'm an outdoorsy kind of girl. So I got a dog, and Lobo became my sidekick, my BFF. He went everywhere with me, did everything with me. He was constantly getting exposed to different people, different dogs, different environments and scenarios. We hiked together, we jogged together, we did everything together. And a few weeks before we decided to divorce, a new puppy came into the mix, Tucker, and Lobo was amazing with him. But when the divorce went down, I became unhinged, and I lost myself. I lost my footing. I lost my grounding. I became a nervous, anxious, stressed out, just wreck of a person. And so, who was once a well-rounded, balanced, calm, just all around awesome dog, suddenly became overly protective and aggressive And in my mindset at the time, I was like, oh my God, what is wrong with my dog? My dog needs fixing. My dog needs training. My dog needs help. And this is very, very common with people. They think that it's just the dog. And I bounced from trainer to trainer to trainer to trainer, trying to quote unquote fix my dog. All of the trainers harped on obedience training. And there's two different shades of dog training. There's obedience training and there's state of mind conditioning and behavior shaping. We cannot solve behavioral issues with obedience training. It's just they're going to play a factor into it, but it's like trying to solve psychological issues with, like, if you have a problem child, it's like sending your problem child or psychologically challenged child to a teacher instead of a therapist. You know, so obedience training is training the brain. They learn 2 + 2, what the square root of 81 is, how to divide, 208 by 4, and how to punctuate, how to spell, all of that stuff. That's what teachers teach. But it's also, state of mind conditioning and behavior shaping. That's the role of in the case of a human child, the role of the parent.
Interesting. That's an interesting comparison. It really is.
Two critical ingredients that every single trainer missed. And the last one was a 2-week board and train program. And Logo, he responded well. When he was there, he responded well. He was around other dogs. The trainer, there was no threats. As soon as he returned back to me, he went right back to his other behaviors. There's a lot of information there that I did not see, and that nobody was aware. Nobody put 2 and 2 together. So all of those trainers missed the state of mind aspect of things. He was a well-trained dog, but he was not a well-behaved dog. There's a big difference. And they missed the part that I played in influencing and impacting his behavior. Because there is a natural order and structure to how dogs operate, and because they do operate very much on a hierarchical system, there was a void in the leadership position. Every pack, every human family has a parent or a set of parents meeting and providing for the rest of the needs of the household, of the dependents. Every canine pack has an alpha or a mating pair of alphas who provide and meet the needs for the rest of their pack. Their structure, their rules, their boundaries, there's discipline, there's, all of that stuff. And because I lost my, I lost my footing, I became unhinged and ungrounded. Logo was like, okay, there's no captain steering this ship. Somebody's got to do it. Might as well be me. And it's in their DNA to assume that role if there's a vacancy. It's not personal. It's primal. It's just their genetics.
Resort back to their what they're designed to do is instinctually like survive.
Yeah, and there's we're essentially, it's like, if there's no captain steering the ship, we're all gonna die.
Yeah, right.
So I mean, he took on that role, but and this is where dogs become even more imbalanced and insecure and just aggressive and all of that because of all the pressure. They don't understand how to navigate our world like we do. They don't understand how to navigate our world like we do. So they're going to become even more insecure. They're going to become even more frustrated and imbalanced and stressed out because they're leading us in a world that they don't even fully understand. So
yeah,
it's,
exactly. Jeez.
He taught me a lot. And unfortunately, I mean, writing, I wrote, his story is up on my website, and I wrote that because I feel like so many people can identify with it. I didn't know what to do. I spent thousands of dollars trying to quote unquote fix him. And, and he ended up biting somebody and he lost his life early. And it took a bit. Yeah, it took me many, many years, to forgive myself. Cause honestly, I always say this, I mean, and to people, we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what we don't know until we do know. And then when we do know, we can make different choices and adjustments. But, had I known then what I know now, shoot, that wouldn't have even been an issue. And had I known then what I know now, if it had become an issue, I would have easily been able to fix it. But I didn't know then what I know now. So my goal is to equip people with the necessary tools, the information, with everything that they need, so that this scenario, to prevent this kind of scenario from even happening in the first place.
Yeah, it happens. Yeah. It even happened in a relationship that I was in prior to my marriage. He was such a cool dog, but he got out and he bit a kid, and they put him down, and it happens. Yes, very, very common. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things that feed into why a dog chooses to do something. They have the ability to choose one way or otherwise, but it's just, but we've got to equip them. We've got to set them up. We've got to help them to develop, again, a healthy self-concept, a healthy world concept, and the difference between appropriate and inappropriate. It's just.
So that's, to me, what that screams out is attentive. You have to be attentive with your dog and be there with them and really companionize. I mean, you're
guide them, lead them.
Exactly. Yes. Lead them. I love that. I mean, it's exactly what you're saying. And it's like so hands-on.
We are loving our dogs to the point of instability and insecurity and frustration and stress and anxiety and fear and all of that stuff. We are loving them to that point because our definition of love, we're like, I don't get it. Like, he has all these toys. He has all these chewies. He gets to hop all over the furniture. He sleeps with me in bed at night. And, and I don't understand like why he hates other people, or I don't understand this and that. But, dogs, they don't, we have to redefine what love means when it comes to our dogs.
Yeah,
we've got to meet their needs first and foremost so that we can help them. When I'm describing a state of mind, I always use like a rating scale. So if you think about it, in between, like a rating scale between 0 and 10, it's up to us to provide them with what they need to hover in between like a 0 and a 5. That's where they're cool, calm, and collected, and they possess a better ability to make good, sound choices. But as soon as they start to creep up above that, a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, they're escalating in state of mind. They're building excited energy. Their ability to make good, sound choices starts to diminish significantly. Right. There's a big difference in my mind between a response and a reaction. A response comes from a more grounded, calmer, cooler headspace. Reaction, on the other hand, is emotionally charged. It's adrenalized. It's an off-the-cuff response, And, in the case of humans, more often than not, we end up regretting having a reaction, So it's a lot of people will for people that are a little tuned into this, will be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to take some time to cool off. I'm going to go take a bath. I'm going to go take a jog. I'm going to go for a walk, and I'm going to just come back to 0, and we'll reapproach the situation, after some time has passed. I really need to gather my thoughts and get myself together, versus, just this reactionary explosion of emotion and all this like escalated energy. And it's very similar with dogs. It's again, like we said earlier, it's our role and our job and our responsibility to manage and control their state of mind and their energy, the energy of the room. We set the tone for the energy in the room, so it's, there's so much at play, and there's so much that feeds into behavior and a dog's response to something. A dog will not step up and they won't protect if they don't feel like they need to.
Interesting.
So if they have
Go ahead. If they have what?
If they have a human leading them, guiding them, showing them the way, if they have a human that they feel safe and secure and comfortable following, and they know that regardless of whatever may happen in the world around them, that we've got their back and we can handle whatever may come our way, then they're gonna be at ease. They're gonna follow us, no problem. They're gonna look to us for how to respond, So, but if they don't have a human at the other end of the leash that is leading them, that is guiding them, that is way showing, and we're an emotional wreck, and we're fearful. We see another dog and we get super tense and really nervous and anxious, and we avoid it, or whatever the story is, then we're going to have a dog that doesn't necessarily feel completely at ease and totally safe and comfortable.
And will be anxious, and will be bitey and reactive and protective. So it triggers all of those emotional responses.
And even if there's construction going nearby, like if the dog is at home, there's a bunch of loud noises, construction going by, or if a new baby is born, or if one of the kids moves out of the house, or if people get divorced and people split, or if a roommate moves in, or, there's so many different variables and so many ingredients that, even like if the dog is living with two people that are constantly at odds, and there's a great deal of tension between them. If everybody just rushes through life and they're rushing to do this, rushing to do that, rushing to do this, you're probably going to have a dog that is a little on edge, that can't necessarily settle, a dog that's insecure, a dog that's a little fearful. There's so many different ingredients that feed into this and that are at play. That's why, it's just, we've got to take a deeper look. When it comes to behavior, we've got to take a deeper look into the differing and the varying ingredients that are fueling the behavior.
I agree 100%. And I think that everything that you've highlighted, and in leading and communicating with the dog, it all clicks with me, because I think that so much of what happens is when you buy the cutest dog that you can see. It happens in a lot of households. Some will just get a rescue animal, kind of sense an energy and say, oh, that's my friend. But then you think about owning a dog, and it's just cute, and it's there for you, and it's cute, makes you smile, watch it play. But there's really so much more involved than just admiring how cute it is, and trying to make it fetch, and rubbing its belly and letting it take a nap on you. But there's real actual work that goes into having to make this little companion accommodate and accommodate your household, your life, so that it fits, because
there's a yin and yang to it. If we're constantly pumping our dogs, if we're constantly pumping our dogs with all the soft stuff without its opposite, if they're constantly gaining through practicing whatever behavior, through making whatever choices, whatever state of mind, they're getting just inundated with affection and toys and privileges and attention and just everything. They're constantly gaining without having to work for or earn anything. What we end up conditioning are very bratty, entitled, unruly, pushy, testy, just really spoiled behaviors. It's just like kids. It is just like kids.
Yes. And if you don't participate in the parenting process, a child can't raise themselves. So the dog's going to make a mess. It's going to poop wherever it wants. It's going to chew a shoe. It's going to, do things, because it's like, well, I'm in this space. I have to do something.
Yeah. Dogs, their quality of life is 100% dependent upon what we choose to provide and what we don't. So like a dog can't, if you think about it, most dogs just hang out at home. People go to work all day, and then they're so tapped and drained that when they come home, the last thing they want to do is, quote unquote, worry about the dog, take them for a walk or whatever, and the dog's constantly getting the short end of the stick. And then when they start exhibiting behaviors like chewing on things or barking excessively or urinating in the house or whatever, we're like, bad dog. We wonder why, and it's unfair. It's really unfair.
It really is, because it's, they're not getting, again, it goes back to not getting their needs met.
Yeah. And that's structure, rules and boundaries and parameters, discipline. There's a yin and yang to discipline. Mental stimulation. The brain is an organ. They crave the opportunity to connect dots and put two and two together. Physical exercise is a big one. Nutrition, biologically appropriate nutrition. There's a big difference between real food and food-like products, and it absolutely impacts and affects state of mind and behavior. Socialization. I mean, these are all things.
Jeez.
That
so everything's clicking. Everything you're saying. I mean, if you raise a dog on kibble and carbohydrates, like we talked about the other day, well, it's be equivalent to just seeing how well you do with just cereal and candy bars and chips, and how well how well mannered you're gonna be, and how well adjusted you're gonna be in a situation like that. Interesting.
One out of 2 dogs are getting cancer now. One out of 2. And before the 1950s, like the 1950s is when kibble started becoming more mainstream, dry food. Before that, and for literally thousands of years, dogs were subsisting and eating real food. They were subsisting off of real food, and they weren't getting over vaccinated. They weren't getting their immune systems weren't getting shot up with a bunch of different vaccinations.
Right.
They were eating real food. They didn't have the flea and tick topicals. I had one of my own personal dogs die from that stuff, and I will never ever use it again.
Oh my gosh.
The heartworm preventative. Yeah. I mean, we are setting them up for illness and just for ailments and disease. And it's, that's a whole different conversation.
It is.
But
yeah. Well, it reminds me of, because my mom, we always grew up with animals, and we had Samoyeds. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Samoyeds.
Yeah.
As kids, and for Thanksgiving, and we would laugh because she would make them their own plate. And so it had a little serving of turkey, a little serving of mashed potatoes, a little serving of like stuffing and vegetables, and it was tiny portions. And then look, here's Zorro's Thanksgiving dinner. But what you're saying is that was always kind of a norm, is dogs would eat human food. I mean, they would eat what we eat to some degree.
An animal's physiology will always give us a great deal of information as to what that animal should be taking in for health and for a strong, robust immune system. We could go into like the comparison between canine and human physiology and all of that, but I mean, their physiology, their bodies are designed to take in, and a lot of people will be like, "Oh, mercy, no." But I mean, it's a different concept. It's a different way of feeding and eating, but their bodies on a very biological and physiological level, they are set up and designed to take in raw meat, raw bones, raw organ meat, everything raw, because what raw means, when heat is applied to any food, it starts to alter the composition of that food. So enzymes start to go, and enzymes are something that all of our bodies need. Vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, all of that good stuff that makes any food awesome and whole basically starts to diminish and goes away.
Wow.
So, depending on who you ask, when you heat a food between either like 105 and 118 degrees, it really depends on who you ask. But that's when that activity starts, and the valuable things, the gold, gets lost. But I mean, the length of their intestinal tract, the shape of their nails, the shape of their teeth, the fact that digestion doesn't start until food hits the stomach. When we take food in our mouths, we secrete a carbohydrate digesting enzyme called amylase. There's information there. They don't even produce or generate that. They don't even make that in their bodies or in their system. So, I mean, there's a lot of little tidbits and a lot of pieces of information that we are totally disregarding. And when we counter nature, we always lose.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I mean, it's...
You have to actually, if life finds a way, I mean, so... I can only imagine, the stuff that they're consuming now, and it makes me think that, like, the conventional kibble and the foods that they're eating is like, there's a lot of grains in dog food now. And like, why? Yeah. And how do they put meat in like a little hard kernel that's flaky and crunchy?
Yeah. I mean, it's like there's a commercial, I think it's Blue Buffalo, but there's a commercial where there's like, there's a bunch of wolves running through the woods, and the guy talking, he's like, "Your dogs are descended from wolves." and wolves in the wild eat real salmon. That's why we use real salmon in our blue buffalo. And I'm like, okay. So first of all, even if you guys have like salmon as the first ingredient on your little ingredient label, barely reminiscent of what it once was. Barely. Wow. And then second, like wolves, you put a bowl of kibble in front of a wolf, or, I mean, even a dog, you put a bowl of kibble in front of a dog and then put a raw steak in a bowl in front of the dog. What do you think the dog's going to go for?
Right.
Come on.
Yes.
There's information there.
Mm-hmm.
And if we were to drop our dogs off in the middle of the woods and leave them for dead, they would eventually revert back to their instincts, and their instincts would tell them to hunt and kill for food. There's information there.
Wow.
We are countering nature, and our dogs are suffering for it. And even we're suffering for it. I mean, the type of foods that we're eating, you know, or food-like products. Again, there's a big difference.
Yeah, because there's so many preservatives and artificial sweeteners and artificial whatever, and then you think about somebody who's a vegan and they eat clean and eat a lot of vegetables and how that makes their system work. It's just very different. So
yeah, I mean,
I think that's a really interesting topic, because, you know, there's so many options for food, but what do you do, and how do you find these resources, and what can somebody do? I mean, how what's the first way to get started?
It's really confusing. I created, because I love to turn everything into a PDF. Yeah. I created some PDFs that I send to my clients about food, about nutrition, and about how to start off. There's a quick start guide to feeding real, I think I called it. And then the benefits of feeding raw. One thing is dogs don't poop as much, because what is poop? Poop is waste, but because their body's actually absorbing and utilizing the nutrition that they're taking in, they're not producing as much waste. They're not producing as much poop. I can always tell the difference between a kibble fed dog and a raw fed dog by looking at the poo. I mean, the poo, not to, quote unquote, talk shit.
Yeah.
But,
we're in podcast mode, so you can say whatever you want now. No holds barred. Yes.
You can always tell. But there's, what we're pumping out is always going to give us a lot of information as to what's going down inside internally. So what we're producing externally is going to give us a lot of feedback on what's going on internally. So, for example, with dogs, if their poo comes out, it's a little more crumbly and really light. That means there's too much bone in their diet. You want to cut back on that. If there's too much organ in their diet, their poo is going to be really, really, really dark. So you want to cut back on that. My guys, I'm constantly doing little tweaks and adjustments every single day. When we go on our structured pack walks, when we're going on our structured pack walks, they poop, I pick it up, I can look at it and analyze it and be like, okay, you're not going to get any bone tonight.
Yeah. That kind of is a pet peeve of mine, dude. If it's like organic waste and it can be like I don't know, what do you call it? Reabsorbed into the earth. Why is it such a big deal? I mean, what's up with the pickup poop? I mean, is it like that? I don't know. To me, it's
if we're in a heavily, no, to me, we're giving back to the earth. It's nature's fertilizer,
right. Like I throw a banana peel out the window on the grass and it looks like I'm littering, but I'm thinking in my mind that that's organic waste and that's going to get reabsorbed into the ground. And, I wouldn't throw like my McDonald's cup, but something like that, I figure an animal will find it, like an apple core or like the rest of my bean burrito that I don't want to eat, and I just chunk it.
Well, there's, if it's in an area that's not heavily trafficked,
right?
I think the thing is you don't want to. Yeah, you don't want like kids outside playing and then they come in and they've got poop all over their shoes or whatever. I mean, that's kind of a bummer.
Right.
So
yeah.
So I mean, for heavily trafficked areas, I don't see a problem with it. But that being said, I mean, a raw fed dog's poop is usually it's not really sticky. It's not really like it's like they're like firm little balls almost.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, like, but a kibble-fed dog's poop is there's more of it. B, I mean, the consistency is just really weird and really like it'll get into all the little teeny tiny grooves of your shoe and yeah.
Damn, I am so surprised like how well you know dogs, Kimberly. I was like, right to the core, dude. Wow, that's so cool.
You're like, wow, you know dog poop really well.
Well, you know everything. Like you're like really like you're the expert, man. I mean, from behavior to scat. I mean, you know it all. Dare I ask about like urine and like wow, but that's good though. I mean, it really means that you are paying attention to the health of the animal, and yeah, you can you can tell a lot by looking at scat and you know, get an idea of what's going on in their system. And yeah, I know when my dog has gotten into something because Duncan will, you know, he gets the runs every now and then, and and we have in the backyard a composter, and he comes in and sometimes his head is smelly. I'm like, dude, so he's been sniffing around over there and he must have gotten into something. Yeah. But yeah, you can. I think it's an interesting science that you can kind of tell the overall health of an animal or the condition of an animal. You know, they're not feeling well or something. You know, by what they're doing.
Oh yeah, and if they ingest something that doesn't really agree with them, and if they need more of something and less of something else, and I mean, there's a lot. I mean, even with us, it's the same thing with us. You know.
Hey, can I ask you a question? So, Duncan is he's a little animal that I rescued. He's a Staffy. I don't know what he is. I mean, we had him DNA tested. It said he was like Staffordshire Terrier, and he had a little bit of Dalmatian. But he was running around the road, and he was tiny. He almost got hit by a car. And anyways, I rescued him, and he is such a cool dog. Now he's our little guard dog. He stays out, and he'll stay and he'll sleep on the couch. Momo still has to be locked up because she can't be really trusted. She's still going through like learning how to not poo in the house and stuff. And she also hops up and I was thinking the other day, like, you know, she had her food, and it probably wasn't like I usually get her the Texas Tripe variety food, and it wasn't that. It was something else, and I usually put like an egg in it, you know, and
a raw egg?
Yeah, a raw egg, so she gets some kind of nutrients. But I was cooking some little sausage patties, and I left the room for a second, and like I came back and half of them were gone, and she was back in her cage. I'm like, I wonder what happened here. And like she's looking like she's all innocent, like she didn't do anything, but I know how many I had, and she's the only one tall enough to actually jump up, and I've caught her doing it before too. And she'll scarf a mouthful, she'll run away. But you know, so everything you're saying is jiving with me that, you know, that they'll choose healthier foods.
They're opportunists.
Oh, big time. Yeah. And you know, even if you're sitting too close, you know, to her, and like, she'll take a chicken nugget out of your hand. I'm kind of disclosing my diet here. It's probably not the best, but she's quick, dude. Right. She's really quick. So
yeah, well, I mean, it's, you gotta like, dogs, this is the thing. I mean, you can teach them that that's inappropriate. I mean, you can teach them that is not allowed. That's not permitted.
So how? What would you do in a situation like that? You don't slap her nose.
No. I mean, well, this is the thing. What we don't disagree with and what we don't address automatically gains our consent. So, you know, we're essentially saying we allow this. We might be like, oh God, no, blah, you know, and have this like whole, you know, little emotional charade after something goes down. But, you know, there's a way, once again, it goes back to communication. We've got to learn how to effectively communicate first. And we've got to become very clear with expectations, with rules, with boundaries, and we have to consistently step up and reinforce them every time. Use the leash as guidance. Right. So, you know, let's see. So for counter surfing, you know, there's a lot of dogs. A lot of times there's, you know, boredom at play. Dogs are just bored out of their freaking gourd. Yeah. You know, they've got energy to burn. They haven't, you know, a lot of dogs are not, you know, they might get like a 10-minute walk, or like a 20-minute walk or something like that. And even then, like, they're dragging their people everywhere. They're way out in front of them, totally controlling and dictating the walk. You know, like wild dogs. What I read that wild dogs travel, was it 70? I think it was 70 miles, like on an average, just 70 miles in a day.
Wow.
You know, and like our dogs, they're lucky if they get like a mile. If there's many of them. You know, I'm not saying,
crazy.
you know, we've got to get our dogs back to their roots and, you know, take them for 70-mile runs. I mean, that's not what I'm saying, but you know, they need adequate, every dog's going to have a different energy level, you know. So I've got a Chihuahua Min Pin mix. The level of exercise and the intensity of exercise that he's going to need is going to be a lot different than, say, my Indian dog Reina. So, or my big guy Levi, or my little Aussie Shepherd mix Chip. I mean, he's more of a duration guy as opposed to intensity. So, you know, with exercise, and just like with human beings, it's all about, you know, intensity and duration.
Yeah.
So
how long are your walks?
In the morning, our morning pack walks are our longest. So we'll go about an hour in the morning. And then in the afternoon, it's anywhere from like 30 to 45 minutes. And then the evening, it's more of just kind of like a relief stroll before we go to bed. So we used to
3 times a day. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, we used to hike every single day. Oh, I miss the trails so much. We used to hike every single day. And then the trails, like, we started getting more coyotes, in the trails behind my house. I love coyotes, but my female has got lady balls of steel, and she chased a coyote off once. And then, of course, which set off a couple of my other dogs. They all chased a coyote off, and I was like, oh my God, no. So, you know, so we started curtailing the hikes and doing more structured pack walks. But I mean, it's tough. It's tough being an urban dog. It's tough being an urban human, but it's really tough being an urban dog because there's so many rules. There's so many restrictions. You know, dogs can't be dogs. They can't just, you know, just get out and run and just be a dog.
Right.
So, you know, but there's something to be said for structured walking too. Again, there's a lot of information that we're establishing. There's a lot of information that we're giving and a lot that's being reinforced during a structured walk. So,
what about, you know, well, let me ask you this. What about a dog that tries to dart away? So I see this, and some dogs will kind of like walk politely next to you, but then I'm thinking like some that might maybe kind of try to like will pull you along. Is that when you would use something like that little claw chain, that neck thing that you're talking
collar?
about? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, again, it goes back to the type of relationship. I can always tell so much about the relationship between a human and the dog by just watching them on a walk together.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking about somebody who's going to change their ways and become more interactive with their dog and say, okay, let's start going for walks. Like, what are some real practical things that, you know, somebody can actually do, and what can they expect?
I never suggest tools without getting a professional to help them, because again, there's the association development process, there's the conditioning process, there's the proofing, and there's also sizing and fitting. So it's not just a matter of getting a tool and just, you know, slapping it on the dog and going to town. That's not the way that it's supposed to be used. And plus, it's just going to end up really, really, really confusing the dog, and you're going to get probably the complete opposite result that you want. Yeah. So, I mean, building trust and respect first. Tools can really, really level out the playing field and come in for the assist. Not every dog needs them, but every dog can most certainly benefit from them. It's a very clear way to communicate and to lead and to teach. And, you know, it's just, you know, I'm just a fan, and it troubles me so much when, you know, that there's like the purely positive training camp in the dog training world. Yeah. And then there's like the balanced dog trainers camp, and they're constantly like, actually, I don't see a lot of balanced trainers that well, at least not the ones that I'm familiar with and that I know, that are attacking. But, a lot of my friends and I don't really put a label on my style of training and approach. I work with the individual dog and I see, what can help, what can level out the playing field, what needs need to be filled.
It's like eclectic. You just kind of assess, you meet them where they're at, and then you bring in your approach. That's interesting. So that's kind of how your organization works. Like when you work with these families that bring in their problematic pet, you can kind of get a sense of their relationship and like where to start, and then you kind of slowly work your way up to like building knowledge and confidence and increasing that relationship with the pet owner.
I will tell you, relationship is huge. Yeah. Relationship is huge. I mean, if you have a shaky dynamic, there's not a lot of trust, not a lot of respect. The dog's going to give you the middle finger every time you tell him to do something. Right. I mean, it's
like Mungo. Yeah, not doing that. Yeah. I can see that.
We started, but there's again, we could just go all over the place with behavior. It's so fascinating because there's three main drives that a dog has. There's prey drive, pack drive, and defense drive, which includes fight or flight. And ideally we want to build and really, really strengthen pack drive in dogs so that drive supersedes all the others. Some dogs, like my guy Levi, for example, has probably one of the most insane prey drives I have ever seen in a dog. It is intense.
Really?
And he will go from 0 to 100 in a matter of nanoseconds. Yeah, I'm serious. Like,
you're tiny. I mean, I'm looking at pictures of you and like, you're a little petite thing. And so you have, I imagine these dogs that you're around, they're pretty big and strong. But
Levi's like 90 plus pounds. Chip's a medium-sized dog. Raina's a medium-sized dog, and Todd thinks that he's 90 pounds, but he's all of like 8.
Yeah, little big man concept. Yeah,
the Todd father.
Yeah, that's cool. I love it. Well,
but yeah, I mean, dogs they're constantly shifting from drive to drive to drive to drive to drive, given the environment.
So imagine one of your theories is to kind of teach people what these are, so they know what mode the dog is in.
Yeah. So the online course, whenever people sign on for training with me.
And what is that website? So just before we get too far into it, the online course.
My website?
Yeah.
Well, there's a link to it on my website under Work With Us. And then there's I don't know if it's called, I'm not really up on my like techno lingo, but it like a hyperlink or a sublink.
Yep.
That goes to something called a Packfit library, and it's got all the articles I wrote for a local magazine, the Zen of Dog Training articles. I think I sent those to you.
Got it. Yes.
Yeah, so people can like download those for free and print them out, save them, whatever.
And what is that?
7 different.
Yeah, and what is that? What does that program explain? So you were saying there's 7 different pieces. It looks like you're about to say it. There's 7 different programs.
Yeah, well, that's where the articles are housed, and then a link to the online course is there as well, and then. So the online course is 10 different modules, and it covers language and communication, because every single part of a dog's body is giving us information as to what their current emotional state is. So when we learn how to read and assess a dog, we can better advocate for them. We can better step up for them. We know how to share space with them a lot better. I mean, if they're super uneasy and really uncomfortable and they're kind of giving us the whale eye, they're giving us information. They're giving us clues like, look, I'm really uncomfortable with your presence. Please don't come closer. Please don't touch me all over. They're constantly giving us signals, but people, A, because they don't speak dog, B, they don't know how to read assess dogs, C, they just, a lot of them just really don't care. They want to pet a dog. Mm-hmm. So, dogs are constantly in communication with us, but there's a lot, like most of their messages are getting just completely disregarded and unseen, misunderstood, and just completely missed altogether. And that's where we end up in a lot of hot water. So it just, learning how to read them, learning how to assess them. Language and communication is one of them. Nutrition's one of them. The human ingredient is one of them. Structured walking is one of them. So because I love to turn everything into a PDF, there's like PDFs and like activity sheets. And the first, I think one of the first exercises in the online course is, there's a wonderful British lady by the name of Wendy Volhard that has been in the dog training industry for many, many years. And she's a wealth of knowledge. And she created like a personality test for dogs. And it goes into, like, you answer a bunch of questions about your dog. And there's different sections like prey drive, pack drive, defense drive. But once you answer all the questions, and you can see how you score, and you can see what your dog's dominant drives are, and it's a really cool test. It's a very cool quiz.
Cool.
So that's up on there. But
yeah, well, that's a great resource for sure, and anybody can access those. So it doesn't matter where you are. And then, do you ever do like personal visits over the phone, or do you do distance training? How does that work?
Well, I mean, we utilize. I mean, gosh, we live in such an awesome age right now, technologically speaking. There's Skype, there's FaceTime, there's homework PDFs and recaps, there's videos, we can send videos. Everybody again is enrolled in the online course, and even my distance training clients. And I always, whenever people sign on for training, I send them a welcome kit, and it's got, anything that I recommend using, I include in there. I include, I love to slap my logo on everything. So they get like a Packfit treat training pouch and that's cool. Any DVDs that I recommend, because I'm really, really big on building people's personal libraries. Just building their personal arsenals. I mean, my ideal goal is to pump them up with so much, I mean, hopefully not in an overwhelming way, but pump them up with so much information and skills and just knowledge that they can handle not only the dog that they have with them at this point, but any dog that might come into their care down the road. That's my goal, is to just work so that they might not ever need me again.
No, that's awesome. I mean, you kind of empower them, and you get them on a level where they're communicating with the dog, and so really you're advocating not only mostly for the dog, but you're advocating the household so that these animals don't end up at the shelter. Because you made a statement of something like within a year, like usually within that first year of their life, and that a lot of these dogs are so misunderstood that a lot of them just end up at the shelter, and it's heartbreaking, because there are just some great animals there, and it's heartbreaking when you go there, because you see the ones that you want, but then like you don't want all of them,
Yeah.
And so, but even the ones that don't look like they're so they don't have a personality or whatever, they're there. You just have to they're level
so
of work.
Stressed out, and they're so confused, and they're so they're so.
And would you say that some of those quiet ones that kind of look like they're off end up being actually some of the best pets ever? Oh, did I lose you?
We can't judge.
Hold on, I'm losing you.
Sure.
Say again.
We can't judge a dog.
I'm still losing you. Yeah, I'm losing you.
Oh.
I heard a little whimper. But you were saying something to the effect of like you can't judge these dogs by the way that they present. I mean, it's not like they're saying to each other, "Hey, owner alert, everybody, come on, puck up, get happy and look really excited and like you're lovey," and it's not like that.
No. Can you hear better?
It's a little better, but it's still kind of really broken up.
Oh, well, it's just that they're so stressed out, and they're feeling so incredibly confused and afraid, and they've got so much going on that we're not going to get an accurate read on their true personality when they're in that type of environment.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love that. So it's really what draws you to them, and looking at them, and there is there really ever, I know most people go for puppies, but I mean, is it possible to take an older dog that you see there and also teach it new tricks? Can an old dog learn new tricks?
Oh my! Can an old person learn anything new? I mean, it's yeah. I mean, it's just basically we teach them, you know, what is okay, what is not okay.
Yeah, I'm losing you. No, so we teach them what you're saying, that can an old person learn new tricks? Absolutely. So we teach them what they can and can't learn. So
yeah.
Well, Kimberly, this has been such an awesome show, and we went into podcast mode. So what I'm going to do is I'll announce on the radio show that there's an extra if they listen online at on the Facebook page, which is the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano, and and I'll have it posted on Spreaker so they can actually listen to not only the show that's going to be aired this Sunday on the radio, but then this extra stuff, because this is like everything that you've said is it's rich and very, very insightful and very useful. I'm just kind of hitting myself in the head over like how some of these concepts, they just play right into psychology. I'm like, well, of course, and
yeah.
But who's ever really taken the time? You have to get out of that mindset that it's an animal and, well, they're just there and they're dumb and they just, they'll pet you, they'll chase a ball. But to really, develop a relationship with them and unlock this potential, because I've seen some really cool dogs in my day that I'm like, man, that is a cool dog.
Yeah.
And how come mine aren't like that?
Well,
where can I get one of those?
Say this. Cool dogs are invested in.
There you go.
And I'm not talking about monetarily or financially. I'm talking about time. I'm talking about energy. I'm talking about attention. Cool dogs it's a different level of commitment. This isn't, we've got to equip them. We've got to set them up. We've got to teach them, so.
Yep. So any dog can really be cool. Just how much time you're going to put into it. And I think with your book, and the book is called My Dog, My Buddha, Too Human, Love Dog. Kimberly Artly.
Human, love dog.
I love that.
Yep.
And the one that the cover that I chose was you have this a female companion and a dog looking out over the sunset and over the water, and they're looking out, and the dog is so cute, leaning its head over on the shoulder. I just think that's an amazing pick. Speaks volumes. But Kimberly, listen, thank you so much for being on the show. I'd really love to have you back.
I'd love to.
And give us some more information, because I'm sure that this is going to generate questions, and maybe we can even do a show where people are able to call in and do something like that. So, but listen, thank you so much for being on the show. Packfit.net.
Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. It's been so much fun, and these are definitely some of the best. This has been one of the best shows that I have personally enjoyed, because I've learned so much, and I think so many people can relate, because everybody has, a lot of people have pets. I want to say everybody, but a lot of people do. And so when you see these behaviors, there's another way you can look at it. You've been listening to the Therapy Hour with Rusty Lozano. Have a great afternoon.